Welcome to Resiliency Redefined. I'm your host, Robyne, and I am thrilled to share with you information about resiliency, well-being, performance, education, business, parenting, and everything in between. I'm committed to joining you each week to talk about these big ideas and bring them into action, habits, tools, strategies, tactics that allow us to finally uncover what it takes to truly be well. And I'm just so excited that you're here. This is a first for the podcast. We're actually recording a dual podcast, one that will be shared with our guest, who happens to be Heather Younger, the author of The Self-Leadership. This is an amazing leadership book that I can share with you. I highlighted so much of this book that I would have been probably better not to highlight this book because it's literally all of yellow. This woman is dropping wisdom. So Heather is here on our podcast today, which is such a treat, but we are actually also going to record some of this for her podcast. So join us for this conversation that, let me tell you, we got so deep into hope, leadership, well-being that I actually at one point forgot that we were actually recording a podcast and it wasn't just Heather and I chatting. I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed talking and connecting with the one and only Heather Younger. Hello, everyone. Now, this is something new. One of my very dear friends and colleagues, and a woman I deeply respect, the one and only Heather Young, we are actually going to be having, essentially, Heather Younger and I are having a dual podcast. This is something that we're going to be sharing on my podcast with my listeners, as well as Heather's podcast as well. So, Heather, here we go. Whatever this looks like.
Oh, I know, I know. It's like, you know what? This is what you have to do, right? We're gonna be going to New Year soon, and
Yeah.
so having Dr. Robyne on here, I'm just so excited to have the listeners of the Becoming Unshakable podcast be able to tune into your absolute brilliance, and so, yeah, I'm excited.
I am so excited. Okay, so let me tell you, this book, The Self-Leadership, oh my goodness, for folks who haven't a chance to come across this yet, I know your listeners would be very familiar, but to introduce my listeners, so discover the power within you and learn to lead yourself. Oh my goodness. It was interesting because I always have this kind of moment, Heather, where I look at books and I'm a big post-it note and highlighter. Like, I get into my books, and there were so many things underlined in your book. I think I would have been better to underline the stuff that I like, other stuff versus stuff I wanted to remember, because the book literally is yellow. Can you tell us just a wee bit about this work and what you're thinking about? And just, this is like a breath of fresh air in
Mhm.
the leadership space.
Mm. You know, it ca this idea of self-leadership has been around for a long time, but it came to me because I'd been, you and I are both speakers, and
Yes.
I consult, and I do a lot of, kind of qualitative research as it relates to employee listening sessions and things like that. And every time I would be, like, between the audiences or listening sessions or talking to leaders, I could hear this sense of, almost like abdication of
Mhm.
responsibility, or, uh, like powerlessness or hopelessness, which is
Yeah.
where we connect it here. And it was like, ugh, thinking about, like, what do you do to how can I help people understand how they can lead themselves more effectively instead of waiting for someone else to lead them, waiting for someone else to be the green light for their lives, for their
Mhm.
work experiences. I feel like I need to take that on. And prior to that, my main focus was focusing on caring leadership, which I still focus on, but
Yes.
it was this more externally focused thing where I was
Yeah.
always talking to leaders and teams about what they do for their employees and what they
Yeah.
should do to keep them, right? And
Yeah.
so, but then I started to realize that how can I continue to press so hard on the external, on the things I need for them to do, which they still need to do that, right? With not having them focus on the things that ground them, like the things that help them be more effective, but they need to settle themselves down. They need to work on themselves. So,
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And one of the things that I see in the work that I do supporting leaders is this idea that so often there are these parallel experiences. So, like, their followers, their employees, their teams, their groups, like, they're going through something, whatever that looks like, but the leader is as well.
mm,
And I love this kind of introduction, or this kind of revisiting the concept of, like, hey, you got to make sure that, like, you're good, that you are doing the things that you have to do, because I think there's this propensity to have what we talk about in my work around, like, this shadow culture, where we might have leaders being
Mhm.
like, this is what you ought to do, or you could do, or you should do. Meanwhile, I'm going to do it differently because I'm the leader. Whereas, like, I think of whatever, when we really kind of hone in on that idea of self leadership, hold ourselves accountable to that. To me, it's like this big permission slip that, like, this is what we do, and this is why we do it, and why this matters.
Mhm. I love that idea because I always say, like, "Don't wait for permission or someone else to be a
Yes.
green light." Like,
Yeah.
you are your own permission slip.
Yeah. I love
FYI,
that.
you were born that way, and
Yeah.
I think I don't know where we got to this point. I don't know if it's just the macro culture, like, just the big world culture that's making us wanna pause more and wait for someone to say it's time yet.
Yeah.
And so in this context, I think that it's a yes and. It's a
Mhm.
yes and proposition, right?
Yes.
It's yes, you do still need to learn how to care for people who are looking to you for guidance in some way, to express that caring, compassionate leadership. And I'm asking you to mirror that same behavior towards yourself.
Yeah, which is brilliant. Absolutely. So, in all of the good work that you're doing, Heather, where do you notice people get stuck the most when it comes to self leadership? Is there like a common or a kind of typical area where you see that most people, well intended, good intended, like they're trying their best? Where do you see those common pitfalls are, or where folks tend to get a wee bit stuck?
I think we don't start off right with our values, like, understanding what I have grown into this so much in this last year specifically, been just much more focused on what is it that I say I value, and then how do I actually show up in the world?
Yeah.
And how am I calling my own self on the carpet for when there is incongruency? And
Mhm.
I think that is must be the starting point for everything we do. So, like, how we're feeling internally. What
Yeah.
are we doing daily? Does that align with what we said we value? Like, all of those things, if we're not incongruent or not in alignment, it
Mhm.
makes everything else upstream not go so well. I think that's
Yeah.
one thing. The other thing is this perfectionism thing. I don't know.
Mm.
I know
Yeah.
you have had to see this, particularly in your, just so you know, for those who are listening, Dr. Robyne has had, I don't, at least 3 books. How many books
Yeah.
exactly?
3, sister,
3 books.
3. Yeah, it's coming
And
up. Yes.
her most recent one, which hello, why didn't I bring that down from my dress? I have it right on my nightstand because I've been
Oh,
reading it since I saw you at the retreat. And her newest book's called I Hope So, and I absolutely love it because it's this idea that we need to be grounded in hope. The
yeah.
world needs hope. Stop saying that hope isn't a strategy. It sure in the heck is. And so she
Yes.
lays out this framework for that. And so it really is such a great connective tissue. Like, our work connects so well, I think, in that too,
Yeah.
because I think we both are people who want to build bridges to, like, more hopeful futures. Like, we don't wanna be just sinking down into this pit of despair. We wanna say, we
Yeah.
understand what the world is,
Mhm.
and this is, like, how we want our lens to look, and that's what
Yeah.
I love about your work and that connection there.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
but the perfection part, the perfectionism, I know you see this in your work where people are just everyone just thinks that everything has to be just like so, and then
Mhm.
comparing
Yeah.
themselves to other people. And so in that book, in the self-leadership book, I actually talk about some of the things that I had to do because I still struggle with this. But some of the things I've done to, like, I rewire my brain to think of what's happening to the person next to me, or like someone who's doing
Yeah.
well in their particular journey. What does that mean for me? And how can
Mhm.
I look at that differently? And how can my mindset be different
Mhm.
just by some of the choices I make? And so
Yeah.
here's like one example of that is I remember I would be social media.
Yeah.
It's the biggest culprit. It's
Yeah.
like, don't look,
Yeah.
don't scroll, don't
Yes.
scroll. You scroll, and then you start seeing all the people and and they're this mastermind, and they're just
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're seeing,
Yeah.
and everybody always shows that good stuff, and then you start
Mhm.
comparing yourself against the good stuff. So what I decided to do was, instead of being like, oh, woe is me, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
envious, I would look at the people, particularly the ones that I would see often, and I'd say to myself, Heather, you're going to actually feel happy for them.
Yeah.
You're actually gonna feel joyful. You're gonna feel
Yeah.
joyful. They were gifted to do the thing they're doing on the planet, and you were gifted. And I just started
Yeah.
to kind of put it in, and as I kept saying that internal self-talk to myself and over and over and over, I
Yeah.
got to the point where I would reach out to the people and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you are rocking it." Like,
Yeah.
I started to feel actually good and
Yes.
happy for the people.
Yeah.
So I feel like, again, I know this, you be this space, this stuff at an even deeper level, but just thinking about how we can change our minds by
Mhm.
just, like, the reframe process. I talk
Yeah.
about it a lot too. I think it's important.
Yeah, it's so many different threads I would love to pull on that, and first of all, thank you for spending time with my wee little book. That brings me deep joy anytime that I hear someone of all the books in the world that this is a book that's taking up some space right now for you. That's beautiful. what you just were saying there about, that invitation to look at something from a different vantage point, I think is so powerful, especially when we fall into that social comparison trap, which is, interestingly from a psychological perspective, social comparison totally makes sense. Right. So back when resources were very, very scarce, like we're talking about, like as we're evolving as a species, when resources were very, very, very like hard to come by, there was a lot of scarcity. We would definitely want to like size ourselves up related to who was in the community, right? Like it absolutely was part of our survival. The interesting thing is that like thankfully access to resources like food, partners, opportunities like that our like communities have gotten a whole lot bigger, right? The world has
Mhm.
opened up. We've evolved in such this magnificent way, but we're still bringing some of our old habits from evolution with us, which means like, whoa, if I see Heather killing it, that means there's not enough to go around. And
Yep,
I'm going to be, in this place of scarcity as a speaker, as an author, as a consultant. But that's like such old thinking.
yeah,
Because if we can acknowledge, like, yeah, okay, weird. I get this kind of vibe where it's like, oh man, look at them doing their thing. And instead of being like, oh, there's something wrong with me, right? Like I'm broken or I'm not doing good enough, being able to be like, oh, I recognize this is like part of my wiring, right? Part of my wiring is we're supposed to be aware of the access and opportunities of resources. Okay, that's a
mhm,
really old part of my brain. This evolved version of my brain is going to look at Heather and say, damn, she has paved a way.
mhm,
She has a blueprint for where I'm going, and I'm only going to ask people for directions to places that they have gone to. And this woman is
mm,
doing it. So I want to look at her and say, yes, sister, how do I do this? Help me. And again, how do we even start doing that? We start doing that by, as you described, physically, emotionally holding space to be happy for them, but then share that to say, like, wow,
mhm.
you're doing amazing. I
Yep,
see your new book. I see your new thing. And I don't know about you, Heather, my experience when you reach out with no ask,
yep.
literally just to cheer someone on, often, often it's the beginning of an amazing conversation and opportunities to be in community.
So, so true. I think I can think of the few times I did this year with people who in our space that have like pretty, we would see as kind of pretty high stature, let's say.
Yeah, of course.
And they were so grateful. So I think
Yeah.
one of the lessons that this year taught me by doing that and kind of changing that mindset is that those you see in whatever space you're in who appear to be just super successful or have achieved such things also need affirmations, also need
Yes.
recognition, also want to be seen,
Yeah.
and you can do that like no matter where you're at. So I think that's just such an exciting kind of perspective or
Mhm.
enlightenment, to land on.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. So, Heather, what are you getting excited about? We were just talking about that. We're going into the new year. We have this kind of lots of different moving parts going on. Thinking about your work on self-leadership, your consulting, your speaking, like what is it right now that is just getting you fired up and excited about the work?
It's so interesting because I think that so there's a repositioning
Yeah.
of the work that I do where it's basically it's an evolution of where I've come from,
Yes.
and so I'd say that's got me the most excited, and it's got me the most kind of, upended, like, at the same
Yeah.
time, right? It's like kinda like
Totally.
until things change. This is the way change is, and this is what everybody in the world's dealing with right now.
Yeah.
We all have different levels of change, and that in this space where you're kind of, "This is this is who I am, and this is who I was, and there's emerging and all
Yeah.
of those things together." So, like I said, excitement, nervousness, and all of those things. I have a book as well that'll be out
Yeah.
next year, another book,
Yeah.
and working on all of that. Like, it's
Yeah.
so many little things and trying to be very intentional, about taking time for me. And then I decided that my word for 2026 is going to be proactive. That's my year,
Ooh, I
my
like
word. And
that.
it's because, I think the key is sometimes I don't know how you feel, like, we're in life and we settle into these places where maybe we get a little complacent.
Yeah.
And particularly if we have our own businesses, like, we can make choices to change, or like change is just thrust upon us.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to actually make it where I'm thrusting my own, like, I'm making it
Yeah.
myself, I'm forcing myself into the change place where it's really uncomfortable, and it is shaking it up a little bit. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, like, sometimes my sleep isn't as smooth as
Yes.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it's getting clearer so that
Yeah.
it's feeling better. Yeah.
I love that for you. And you're right, that notion of these dual truths. We can be excited that something new is on the horizon and feeling wobbly while it's unfolding. And it's also like impacting us emotionally, energetically, even physically, with terms of it impacts our sleep or, even just our awareness, right? Like, so I very much appreciate that when new things are on the horizon, like change is meant to be messy, right? It's meant to be disruptive. It's meant to kind of, shake it up a wee bit. So then that way we are like paying attention, right? That's the big idea, is paying attention.
I love that. So, look, now I'm gonna ask you because
Yeah.
I it's just something I would definitely always wanna ask in the show, and you just
Yes,
brought it
please.
up, and it ties to your work on resilience too, I think.
Sure.
So when I say the term unshakable leadership,
Yeah.
what do you think of immediately?
Yeah, so when I think of unshakable, it's this idea that, like, it doesn't mean it doesn't get bumps and bruises. It doesn't mean it isn't wobbly. It doesn't mean it collapses, right? So,
Mhm.
like, to me, unshakable is the fact that it's like its foundation is solid, but
Mm.
even the biggest skyscrapers, they actually blow in the wind, right? So if you think of,
Mhm.
like, I remember the last time I was in Chicago, and Ava and I, we were there for Jackson's basketball, and we had this, like, 5-hour break, Heather, like, in between, like, the first game and the second game, and we're walking around downtown Chicago, and I'm like, "Hey, what do you wanna do?" And she's like, "Let's jump on one of those boat tours." I'm like, "Let's do it," right? So we kinda run down by the boardwalk, we get on it, and then all of a sudden we realized we were on this, like, architectural tour, which amazing, but neither of us know very much about architecture. Let me tell you, 90 minutes later, I was informed, and I remember the tour person explaining how even some of these massive structures, that they actually, like, move in the wind. And they actually have, and forgive me, I can't remember the exact building, but there's, like, literally in one of them, it actually has water at the top in one of, like, the 38th floor, because what happens is that it actually allows the building to, like, stay solid even
Ah.
in the elements. So, like, and what was actually happening, Heather, this was fascinating. The people that were on the floors above this water before they had put the water in, they were actually getting a wee bit of motion sickness because the building was moving in the wind. And so they added water to control that. So
Ah.
to me, unshakable is that structure, that the foundation is rock solid, which is our values. It does ebb and flow, and we can put environmental pieces around it to allow us to show up even in storms.
I love that so much. See, and some of that just helps me, continue to evolve the thinking and
Yeah.
evolve, how I talk about it. Well, that makes more sense to people. I am curious to know what's got you excited now. Like,
Yeah.
what are you up to?
So
What's got you excited?
Yeah. So as you know, Heather, I lovingly and affectionately say that I'm like a recovering academic. So like I was in the academy for over 20 years, and I've been kind of charting my own course post my experience as a member who would teach in the university setting. And one of the things that I've been working on for decades, my work has always been around resiliency and human performance and well-being. However, about 3 years ago, I took a very deep dive into the science of hope and learning the power of living hope filled. And right now I feel like I'm in my like hope scientist era, and the new book, as you mentioned, is coming out in February, and I am so excited and energized around showing people practical ways that hope, as you said, can be a strategy, and it is absolutely the remedy for what the world needs right now. So I am really keyed up about this.
It's so good. I always wanna call BS on people when they're like, "Hope is not a strategy." I'm just
Yeah.
like, "Who
Yeah.
are you?" And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I've gone that's if it's your default, it ends up
Yeah.
being a strategy, right?
Totally.
And especially in this world, I feel like when it's so unsettled, I wanna lean into hope some
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing in the research, and, like, that's the part that has been so remarkable, is the fact that people who have navigated horrible, difficult, no good, rotten circumstances,
Mm,
and it isn't, and I think one of the places to start this conversation is recognizing that hope isn't optimism, right? Like, they're
mhm,
related, but they're very different in the sense that, like, optimism is getting attached to an outcome, right?
mm,
Like, I'm optimistic that I'm gonna get this job. I'm optimistic I'll get this opportunity or this relationship is gonna unfold just like this. Or, I'm applying to school. I'm gonna get into this school, right? Like we get very attached to an outcome. Hope is like this deep, steadfast faith that no matter what, you're gonna be okay. That you show
mm,
up, you put in the work, and you hold the line that, even if, let's say, that school isn't the one that sends you the acceptance letter, that means that there's another opportunity for you. And so again, it's that steadfast
mm.
belief that we're gonna be okay and that we're gonna figure this out.
I love it so much. I think it's a really good counterbalance to the resilience focus too, I
Yeah,
think, as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah, and Heather, I can share with you again right now, like, the reality is the world is very unwell, and it's not downplaying that. It feels like
Mhm.
everyone is outraged right now. And
Yeah.
like, no one particular group or party or organization is like, oh, we're killing it. Like, this is great, right? Like, everyone's going through stuff.
Yeah.
And what I find so interesting and what we shared about, like at the retreat, we were both able to attend. Thank you, Stu and Phil, for bringing that together, by the way. And that retreat was that an idea that I shared there was that right now, not getting our hopes up feels safer because
Mm.
so much is outside of our control,
Yeah.
but that like, what got us into this mess isn't gonna get it out of it. Like, this isn't
Mhm.
like giving into despair and hate and negativity and fear, like, that isn't going to be the ingredients that are gonna get us to the other side of this. It's time that we start harvesting and cultivating and forging hope practices because I really think the quality of our life depends on it.
It's so interesting because at some point I was you know this is the whole evolution of how do you expanding your brand or where you're going in your personal so like where you're going in your life like where you're being called to. I'm a faith-based person, so for me
Yes.
I'm like I feel called by
Yes,
God to
you do.
go in this direction, right?
Yes.
And so I go in this direction and it feels like and at the same time I'm there's like this whisper or maybe even a yell out in the
Yeah.
world that says, Heather, we still
Yeah.
need more care. We need
Yeah.
people listening. We need people seeing. You can't back away from it. And at
Mhm.
some point, someone says to me, somebody I respect says to me, well, yeah, I was on the phone with somebody and they said that empathy is woke. And I said, wait a second. So I've never really considered myself a woke person,
Yeah.
despite what I look like.
Yeah.
However, when I heard empathy is woke, and I thought, wait a second, so then compassion is woke, so then
Mhm.
love is woke, and of course, it's just a negative connotation on the
Yes.
wokeness, right? And so I'm like, well, I guess then I'm going to have to own a badge of wokeness because there's
Yeah.
absolutely no way. And this is where I was like,
Yeah.
oh heck no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lean away from the care, the love, the
Yeah.
being seen, the listening, because I think it goes hand in hand with hope. It gives people hope that that they aren't just like a speck on the planet, but that they
Yeah.
mean something to the world, right? And so
Absolutely.
I'm with you. Like I saw that,
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, I hope so. I'm like, yep, you sure. Yep, I do
Yeah.
too. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's so amazing because, to me, and it was actually Dr. James Rouse, who we met at the retreat as well, who, he uses the word so often. And again, as somebody who's living in, Colorado right now, who navigates all of these moving parts
Yep.
and because again, a political, very complicated
Yeah.
system, he talked so much about this idea of like how love is an act of being heroic. And at
Mhm.
the when I heard him say that, like, standing up right now and saying, no, these are like these are value-based ways of how I want to be in the world. Like, this matters to me because of my faith. This matters to me as a community member, as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, all of the things. It's
Yes.
like I can't shut this part off of my humanity and I won't shut this part off.
Nope.
And I really loved how he like reintroduced to me that idea about heroic. And at one
Mm.
point I turned to Jenna, who was sitting next to me, and I said, like, Jenna, like, essentially what I feel this call. So speaking of what you were saying about this call, I said, in
Yes.
my heart, I'm just feeling like, man, we got to be heroically hope filled right now. Right. Because
Yes.
it is an act of rebellion, and not in a, excluding people, us versus them. It's like,
No.
no, no, no. This right now, everybody's competing. It's noisy, it's angry. And what I've seen in the professional landscape, people at the bottom compete, people at the top collaborate. And I wanna
Mhm.
be at that top where people are
Yes.
collaborating, where people
Yep.
are getting their hopes up, where people are celebrating other people's wins, and
Yep.
recognizing that scarcity of like, "Oh, if I'm happy for you, there's not enough for me." Like, no, there's
Mm-mm.
more than enough to go around.
Yep, and I think that word that if I had to choose a second word for 2026, it would be that kind of partnership or
Yeah,
collaboration. Because I do think that we are so much better together, and I do
yeah,
think that each of us can give each other hope, and we all can also help each other be seen and feel
yes,
like, we matter on the planet. So I feel like
absolutely.
it's so exciting, and I'm like, I can't wait to, like, how many more partnerships? How many more ways can I take someone else's genius, merge them with my genius, create
Yeah,
a bigger genius that then
yeah.
impacts more people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I was it's funny you say that. I was at an event a wee while ago, and somebody was, they were doing this kind of like word to describe yourself. Like if you were to meet somebody and they would describe you in one word, how would they describe you? And of course, icebreakers literally make me cringe. So I was like watching this group being like, oh sweet Jesus, like if I was at that table, like I was there as a guest, right? So like I wasn't in the icebreaker activity. Anyway, and this one gentleman who was clearly a very well-positioned person in leadership in this table at this group, sorry. He's like, "Oh, well, I think people would say, like that I'm like always right. Like because I'm always right. I'm pretty much a know-it-all." And I remember having this moment where I was just like, I will never have that degree of confidence in any situation to say in front of a room of people like I know everything,
No.
or I'm like the most knowing person in the space. But what it made me think about is like years ago, when I was still in university. Okay, Heather, we were at this like kind of like a this event, and you had a choice that you were, and it was a trivia event. And one of those like secret pieces of Robin knowledge is like I effing love trivia. Like I am the most useful phone call if you were ever doing trivia. I love it. It's like a super skill of being a woman with ADHD. I
Oh.
remember the most random useless facts, like it literally is a sport, okay? So, I was at this event and they said, "You can go into the final round of trivia, like, by yourself, or you can bring a team with you." Right? And you can literally pick people from the room and you can compete by yourself or you compete in a small group as a small team. But they were literally people that you would just meet in that room at that bar.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then if you won, you had to split it with your people versus if you go it alone, you got to keep all of the prize to yourself. And I had that moment where I was just like, okay, I like my odds of bringing a few key people in, right? So
Mm.
I like brought a few people in, but I was also strategic in the fact like I didn't want to bring too many people into this because like I still like, hey, we needed grocery money. Like, let's be honest, right? Like I was a student, right? Like we needed to eat. So I remember having this moment being like, there is no one person in this room that is smarter than everybody else. It's figuring out like what is the thing that you know a lot about. And so in 60 seconds, it literally was
Mm.
like, who's really good on history? Like I literally was doing like this like on the fly interview, like who's good, like who's got flags world geography, right? And people be like, that's my field. And someone else, this one dude, I remember saying like, oh, I know sports. I'm like, dude, I got you. Like, no, I don't need help on sports.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
you don't
So
need
like,
to know.
but anyway, but I'm sorry, this is such a long digression. But
No,
the
that's
point of
okay.
my little story here is the fact that no one person do I think would be able to beat out a team. Like I
Mm.
take team
Mhm.
any day. Like nobody is meant to do this alone. And for people who like to have loops closed, like to close that loop,
Mhm.
absolutely we won. We annihilated that person in very healthy competition. We all had groceries for the week. And I'm a big fan of don't go it alone. You don't need to.
I agree with you. You and I are locked in on that. I believe that, like, it's so funny because 'cause I'll say self-leadership and self-leadership to me and even being unshakable does not mean doing it by yourself. Because most people is self. Well, self, doesn't that mean
Yeah,
I'm focused just on me? Well,
yeah,
it a big part of it is, but you have to make sure that you bring the right team, and it is the right team. I love your
that's right.
qualifier. It's
Yes.
not just anybody. You
Yeah.
gotta think about who brings a strength where you're weaker in those
Yeah.
different areas, and same, like, vice versa, and you can fill
Yeah.
those gaps, and I am curious because this kind of goes right into that, which is,
Yeah.
um, what is in your like, your toolkit, like, your survival toolkit as somebody who is, knows everything about the brain and
Yeah.
psychology and all these different things. What's in your toolkit?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love this question. And just as a small qualifier, I by no means know everything about the brain. I love that you think I have a solid understanding. I would be useful in a brain trivia if you had to pull a stranger in the room. But there's lots of folks who know more than I do about it. But what's so important to me personally, again, you've already tapped on in terms of our value system. Like
Mhm.
without a doubt, at this age in my life, at 46 years old, I absolutely have a solid sense of who I am and who I am not,
Mm.
and I don't run other people's races. Like, I am
Mm.
so locked in of knowing what my values are, what matters to me. I make what matters most matter most, and I make sure that my inner circle, my family, my home team, that they know that they come first, right? So part of
Mhm.
my practice in terms of resiliency in life and well-being is just that clarity. All of this is so temporary in the sense that
Mm.
the days are very, very long some days as that that old quote goes where the days are long, but the years are short.
Yeah.
My time here is very precious as
Yeah.
my time with my family. So that's locked in for me.
Mm.
The other piece that I've learned along the way, and as somebody who's navigated, gosh, like a lot, like, I dropped out of high school, I navigated addictions, I navigated a catastrophic car accident, I've
Yeah.
navigated many different seasons in my life, mental health, emotional health, lots of different things. And when you are going through something that is so hard and something that is so scary, the idea that I really hold on to, obviously my faith is important, and within that is this idea that when you are drowning, just get to the shore. That's the
Mm.
only thing that matters is you get to the shore. This is not the time to ask yourself, "How did I get into this situation? Why am I in this situation?" Or "Why did they do that to me?" Or that is not the season to do the reflection. It's not the
Mhm.
time to
It's
do
not.
the deep dive. Do whatever you need to do to get safe. And
Mm.
when you get safe, then you can make the next right move. So when I'm feeling really overwhelmed,
Yeah.
whether that be again, thankfully, I'm not navigating any major crisis, right? My seasons
Mhm.
have felt far smoother in the last
Mhm.
decade. When I do feel overwhelmed, whether it's professionally or personally, I just ask myself, what do I need to do to get to the shore?
Mhm.
And
I love
sometimes
that.
it's just a walk, right? Sometimes it's a prayer, sometimes it's connecting. I keep things very simple as a behaviorist. I ask myself, what do I have to do to get to the shore?
I love that. What a great question that can help kind of recenter us. And
Yeah.
I think it's right front and center to reframing kind of a current circumstance too.
Yeah.
It's sometimes it's hard to do it right in the moment, and
Mhm.
I don't know if reframing works right in the moment, but it works. It can work shortly after the
That's
moment, and
right.
so I love the shore idea that like
Yeah.
you get there and now you can go, okay, what just happened,
Yeah.
and we can evaluate then and in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
And like you kind of it's I think I don't I almost think we're at the point in our world that there aren't many of us that haven't had, like, some kinda tough thing happen in our
Yes.
life, whether it's the addiction, oh my gosh, the list go is crazily
Yeah.
long, right?
Yeah.
And so you almost wanna be like, "Who in here has not had trauma?
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Who in here
Yeah.
is not" whatever, it's
Yeah.
kind of it is. Don't you feel that? It used to be it
Yeah.
was, like, more nuanced, and now it
Oh,
just seems
yeah.
like it's almost everybody having it, which is kinda sad and
Yeah.
interesting, I mean, at the same time, but
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that I believe her name was Dr. Jen, and I need to look up her name. We'll find it for the show notes. But the somebody asked her recently about like, wow, why are people talking so much more about trauma? Or in this particular context, I think they were saying like, why is it now that like every woman is in perimenopause or every woman has ADHD? And her response, which I thought was so beautiful, it was sound and it was also poetic. She said, we have a better telescope now, so we're seeing more stars that have always been there.
Mm,
Like, we have better tools now,
yes.
whereas the trauma was present decades, years, eons ago, like 100%. That's something that's part of the human condition.
Mhm.
Grief, loss, trauma, pain, suffering, it's part of the human condition. It's always been there, but now we have better tools that we are talking about it, we are seeing it. We're also honoring the lived experience in a different way than we would have even a decade ago when we're talking about specifically even if mental health or emotional health.
Mhm.
We're talking about it. Now it doesn't mean the stigma's not like the stigma's still
Yeah.
there, right? And I
Mm.
think there's a wee bit of a misnomer where people are like, "Oh, we're talking about it, it's good." It's like, "No, no, no. If I'm an employee and I've experienced a mental health episode, you're damn right I'm gonna be worried that's gonna impact my job." Right?
Yep.
So I think it's really almost a disservice to persons that we say like, "Oh, everybody's talking about it. We're all good." It's like, no, no, there's still stigma and there's still discrimination that happens on some of those matters, even marital status, right? Like there's still discrimination all around us.
Yeah.
It's present in the lived experience. And my concern though is that when those experiences are just so riddled with that shame, and sometimes we can be harder on ourselves than anybody else can. And
Mhm.
that to me ties it back to that self-leadership, that this isn't about being self-centered. This is the idea about like, this is science. It's not selfish. This is
Totally.
science. We have work to do. And when
Yeah.
people start doing their work, they're going to show up differently in the world.
It's so interesting. I think about going back to the retreat that we were at.
Yeah.
Had a kind of a powwow with somebody that was at the retreat after the fact, and I said to him, I said, "It's so interesting. Out of all the things I heard and out of all the experiences, well, there were so many that were amazing to even to think back on." But he had said something to me, and it's the thing that I talk about in the self leadership book, and I think probably at least 70% of us. will admittedly struggle with this, and there
Yeah.
might be another 10 to 20 that don't admittedly, but actually do, which is this concept of self-worth.
Oh,
And what he's saying is that, again, I spent a lot of my career pouring into others, doing things that were kind of like I'm gifting, I'm focusing,
mhm.
I'm uplifting, I'm embracing, I'm listening, I'm holding space for,
Yeah.
right? All those things, which is a real giver type of thing. And what he said is, okay, but are you willing to take the reverse? Are
Mm.
you willing to take what we give back to you? Are you willing to take the reverse praise? Are you willing
Yeah.
to be seen by us and really seen by us? And it's one of those things that's just been stirring in my head, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Holy moly." 2
Yeah.
years ago, I faced this. I knew this was a thing. I had been working towards it, and I thought I had gotten past it. And as he asked me the question, I
Yeah.
thought, "Uh-oh,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm fully there yet." Like, I
Yeah.
don't know I can answer that with, with gusto,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, that those pauses, right? But, like, a friend of mine, Doctor, Jay Papasan, he says, "You can't read the label from inside the box." And sometimes having other people be able to share that with you in that safe space, right? In that space where,
Mhm.
we were very vulnerable and people were showing up for each other. Like that's the chance when somebody's showing us the label and not like the label in terms of like, oh, you feel
Judgment.
unworthy. No, not at all.
Yeah.
We're talking about like that was a blind spot perhaps
Yes.
until that person said, are you able to receive, Heather? Are you
Yeah.
able to receive? And it's interesting because I feel like I know who you were chatting with, and I was having a chat, and one of the calls that Dr. James put out in that space was, who are you under loving right now? Who are you
Mm.
under loving? And
Mm.
it was amazing because the woman I was sitting next beside said, "Oh, I could show up so differently for my relationship with my parents." And I had that moment where I'm like, I have one living parent and I'm like, you know what? I'm doing right by my dad. And then I was like, my kiddos, they're good. They know that they are good. As Hunter likes to say, life is on easy mode for my three kids because they said, Mama works hard. Life's on easy mode. Like, let's keep perspective, which I thought was adorable,
Yes.
for Hunter to share. Anyway, so I went through, like, all my people, and I'm just like, "No, damn him. Heather, I'm doing pretty good. Everyone I think is well loved." And then all of a sudden I had this like, "Whoa, am I taking care of myself the way that I
Mm.
wanna be taking care of myself?" And it was like, I do take care of myself, but it's only after I've taken care of everybody else.
Yeah, and I some years ago, I got to the point where I was like, it was a symbolic thing, but I said, "Okay,
Mm,
if I can just get up early enough in the morning and start my day, like, intentionally on me," so it's, like,
yeah,
mentally on me and physically on me, then at least I know, like, my day starts with
started there.
me,
Yeah,
even though, like, everything kinda starts to
yeah,
and then it's, like, figuring out how I either insert me in the middle of the day, which is, like, so water, like, water is
yes,
a big thing for me, and,
yeah,
Greg talked about that with
yeah,
all the water.
yeah,
And so I was like, "Okay, how much more water, like, hydration can I get? Okay, I can do
yeah,
those little things for me throughout the day." It's like, what are the little small things I can do
yeah,
that, like, are caring for me? And yet it's so true. I think it's a struggle generally, not just women. Women do have this the
yeah.
most, of course, but I do think I've been seeing more and more men admittedly say, "Gosh, I don't take enough time for me."
Oh,
I'm sure you've
100%.
seen this too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was funny actually, last week, I looked at my cell phone and it was down to 2%, right? And all of a sudden I was like, "Damn, I need a charger," right? So I, like, jumped up, got a charger, plugged in my phone, and then I sat down, I'm like, "Okay, phone is okay. Phone is good." And then I'm like, "How are you, Robin?" Like, literally, because I sometimes talk to myself in third person, be like, "Robin, how are you?" And I'm like, "I'm underhydrated, I'm underfed, I'm exhausted. I think I have to use the restroom." And I'm, like, barely holding on, and I'm like, "I got probably 2 more hours for me." Right? And,
Yes.
that was my response. I'm like, "Okay, with all of these, I am under-resourced," right?
Yes.
Like, physically, biologically at this point, I am under-resourced, and I'm like, "Yeah, I can grind it for another 2 hours. I got 2 more
Mm.
hours of work I could do." And in that moment when that kind of idea popped in my head where I'm like, "No, I can thug this out for 2 more hours." All of a sudden, I'm like, "Whoa, woman, you literally just ran across the house to find a charger for this phone because it was at
Yes.
2%. You
Yes.
you are like you are not even turning on at this point. Like, you are empty." But I was like,
Exactly.
"No, I can thug it out for 2 more hours."
Isn't that
Like, "Heather," and
interesting?
I study this. This is literally my
Exactly.
field. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and it's like and it's just it's so funny how we devalue, like, or kind of minimize and put ourselves lower on that rung,
Yeah.
and it's what we don't realize. This is the point where I was like, we're not what are we doing, people? How are you expecting that, like, you want better performance, like the stuff
Yeah.
you focus on. You want better performance, you want better service, you want
Yeah.
better anything at work, and then all you do is spend all your time doing all the things for everybody else. And it doesn't mean that you can't do like, you're supposed to do both. The
Yeah.
point is that you're supposed to do both, and you have to find the balance, and the balance
Yeah.
isn't easy, and we all have to do it, and it's not just one person called to do it, it's all of us called to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And we have to
Totally.
do a better job. We
Yeah.
can't be giving from this emptiness and expect people that they're to not see our dryness. We
Yes.
just can't do
Yeah.
that. So,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, it just yeah, you and I have a feeling you and I could talk for hours on
Oh,
this.
days, days.
Hours and
Yeah,
hours.
days and days and days, hours and hours. But, again, one quick last question for you. I know when we were saying goodbye at our event, you were on your way to see your son at his
Mm,
D1 track event, if I recall
yes.
correctly, and I would just love to have a mama to mama moment. Like, tell me about that experience. What was that like seeing your boy have his moment? Like,
Oh,
that's a
well,
big deal.
it was very cool. Here's the interesting story, and this is so good about when we think about, like, what you think about, you bring about, or how you
Yeah,
visualize, or what you say about yourself, like the
yeah,
hope part, the external hope and an
yeah,
internal hope, well, both, I think, the matchup. So
yeah,
with him, he was in baseball all the way through high school, and he got cut in his senior year, and hit all the way through that time, like, since he was, I don't know, 13, 14, he kept saying, I'm gonna be D1 athlete." He was thinking
yeah,
D1 baseball. So he gets to his senior year in the second semester, and he's like, "Well," he gets cut, and he's like, I guess I'm gonna go try out for track. It's a no cut
yeah,
sport." So he tries out, and they immediately are like, "This guy's like 6'4", 220." They're like,
yeah,
"Go over there to this shot put
yeah,
discus area. You go do that."
yeah.
And then he ended up taking, this regional meet, and then he took 7th for state, and
Yes, he
we
did.
w and he was had gotten so he goes to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis,
Yes.
and the coach there, he's a plebe this year. He sent the coach, like, information, like, here's videos from those different things I
Yeah,
did, here's some recommendations from the coaches in high school, and the coach was like, yeah, go ahead and fill out your, NCAA stuff, you're in-house." And so to see it, like, he said it to himself since he was younger, and it was for a different sport, but, like, for
yeah,
what he thought about, he brought about, what he said out loud about itself happened, and so to see him there, this big old guy, they're all,
yeah.
doing their thing. He didn't take, like, an award or anything that
Doesn't
time, but
matter.
and at
Yeah,
first he was hard on himself, and I'm like, "Okay, number 1, let's just get real.
yeah,
You learn the sport 2 months before you graduate." So that would be by the
yeah.
way, that was, like, in this year. So
Yes.
this year you
Yeah,
learned,
yeah,
not even really learned, you just
yeah,
went and you did it. You're learning now because you didn't know what the heck you're doing, because all these other
yeah.
people have been doing it for years, and you are a D1 athlete.
You are a
So
D1 athlete.
what you said is the thing that happens. And I'm just like,
100%.
aren't they so inspiring to us? I
Yeah.
just feel like our youth are inspiring to us and help us see our potential. They
Absolutely.
give us hope,
They
Dr.
do,
Robyne.
and I love your story that you like, to me, this is, like, the most beautiful way to land this plane in this conversation because the being attached this optimism being attached to the outcome was being a D1 baseball player. But your
Mhm.
son cultivated enough of a hope practice that he wanted to be a D1 athlete, and he was open. And I tell you, sometimes I am convinced the universe have bigger plans for us than we could ever even imagine. And it's that idea of being open to it, right?
Mhm.
Where he was opening his identity, that he wasn't just seeing himself as somebody who plays baseball, he was seeing himself as a D1 athlete. He opened it up, and obviously his gifts and his skills and his talents were put to use in a beautiful way. I'm
And I love
so
when you say beautiful. I love it. By the way,
oh,
I love it when you say beautiful, you say beautiful, and I
there
just
you go.
absolutely love it.
Oh, well, you
I
are a
love you
gem.
too.
Oh, I just love being able to be in community with you, and I am cheering so loud and so hard for
Uh,
you and all of the beautiful work. Oh,
mm,
there you go. All the good, beautiful work that you're doing, my friend Heather.
I love
So
it.
and I tell you, this is my very first, like, dual podcast like this.
Mhm.
So I hope you, thank you for coming on to chat with my listeners. I'm so excited to now be connected with your listeners, and I hope we get to do this again real soon.
Oh, yes, absolutely, and big hugs, kiss
Mhm.
to you. I'm
All
so
to you.
glad to be aligned, and you know what? You help me become more unshakable too, so thank you for being my space.
Thank you for spending time with this podcast episode today. I hope you found something helpful in Resiliency Redefined. Please feel free to share it with somebody who you might think could benefit. Maybe there was something useful, something in particular that you think you could pay forward. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate and review this podcast wherever you like to listen to your podcast. It means the world to me. And again, thanks for your time. Thank you for your interest. Take good care, and I'll see you next time.